Hey guys, Phil from Trail Talk MTB here, and this week we're pitting these three pedals against each other. So I know the most popular comment's going to be, why didn't you test this pedal or anything like that? These are just the three pedals I've got on review at the moment, and I might have tried the ones you're thinking of in the past, so leave a question in the comments and I might be able to answer them. Other than that, I've been riding flats for around about 4 years now, and I'm pretty picky with which pedals that I like. I have size 12 feet, so pretty big feet, and with 510 impacts, they're pretty chunky shoes, so I need a pretty wide platform as well, so I'm pretty picky. It's good to see some changes in the market going to more bigger platforms, and there's a few good examples out there. There's also a few other brands that are doing sizes with their pedals. So you've got the Crank Brothers, they've got 2 different sizes, and also the new Shimano XTs that I've got for review here, they come in 2 different sizes as well. So over the past 6 months, I've had 3 different pedals on rotation. So starting with the Raceface Atlas here, I've got the Dior XT, so the new Shimano in the larger size. And then I've also got the Pedaling Innovations Catalyst pedals, so the biggest ones on the market at the moment. So starting off with the Raceface Atlas. Not only are they a cool color because they come in purple and match my bike, but they were the grippiest pedals on test despite having the smallest platform. So they've got 101 millimeters wide versus 114 millimeters long, which is a slight overestimate because they do have slightly chamfered edges. But even though they are a small size, they definitely pack a big punch. They've got these really small pins that really dig in your shoes. They're also angled, and the platform is also a bit concave, so they really dig into your shoes, and I found this was the case on both the shoes that I tested with, so my 510 impacts as well as my old Shimano flat pedal shoes as well. Another big benefit of the pedals is that the pins thread in from the underside, so they don't use grub screws like the other 2 pedals on test, which I'm not a huge fan of, because if you impact them, then there's potential for the pins to get damaged and you can't unthread them, or they can just strip out completely. So I definitely prefer this style of pins. And it also means you can use slightly smaller pins because you don't have to have like a 1.5 or 2 millimeter Allen key to thread in from the top. You can just have small pins, and these really dig into your shoes. Some people don't like them because it might feel like you can squirm around, but I don't necessarily notice that, and I just feel like they dig into your shoes so much better. Another big benefit of these pedals are that they're really thin. Most of these pedals that use the big inboard sealed bearings tend to be on the thinner side, and I really like it about this pedal. I definitely notice when I'm climbing I'm not getting as many pedal strikes, so it's definitely a big benefit. And coming along with this the thin nature of the pedals, they're also really light, so coming in at around about 350 grams. So onto some of the limitations of the pedals. So even though they are the grippiest, if you do slip a pedal, because they do have the smallest platform of the pedals that I've been testing, it is a bit harder to find that sweet spot again. I felt like I was fumbling and ending up a bit pigeon-toed and all that kind of stuff in those situations. So it is a bit hard to remount the right spot, but they are the grippiest. So for people that don't necessarily slip too many pedals, then they'll definitely be a good option for you. Another issue that I came into was in regards to durability. After a wet trip down to Tasmania, I did start to notice that the bearings did seize up a little bit. So after my rides, when a lot of mud clearly got into them, when it dried up, they would seize a little bit. Once they were freed again, they were fine. However, this is a bit annoying, and it shouldn't really be happening after 1 to 2 months of use. You can get rebuild kits, but as I said, you really shouldn't be having to rebuilding pedals after every 2 months. The last thing to note is because these pedals do use a big sealed inboard bearing, you need to use a pedal washer when you're putting them in, because otherwise this part of the pedal will contact your crank and obviously damage it and probably strip the thread out in the long run. Other than that, you probably won't be able to use many crank boots as well with these pedals because of that bearing. I knew a few people struggled with the Raceface crank boots and they weren't able to use these pedals, so that's something to note as well. So onto the Shimano XT M84 pedals. So Shimano are well known for making pretty bulletproof reliable pedals with the old Saint pedals. Looking at the XT M840s, they definitely look no exception to this. So they've got a chrome moly spindle and a huge alloy body. In practice, this is mostly the case as well. So the platform is pretty big on these medium-large XT pedals. So you're looking at a claimed 115 wide by 110 long. For me, they came in more close to 110 wide and 108 long, but still these pedals were the widest on test. They're also the thickest pedals on test. So 20 millimeters thick on the edge and then 18 millimeters thick in the center, so they are slightly concave shaped. So due to how big they are, they were definitely on the porky side. weighing in at around about 480 to 490 grams. So the pedals come shipped with small smooth pins installed, which are pretty useless in my opinion. Would have been nice for them to come with, say, something around like a 3mm long pin. However, I took those small pins out straight away and put the long 5mm pins in, and these were definitely a big improvement. So they are grub screws, as I said, so I'm not a huge fan of those in terms of durability, but I'm also not a huge fan of them in practice as well because they are a bit wider. I definitely feel like sometimes I'm standing on top of the pedals as opposed to being connected to them, as like the pins would dig in, so a bit more connection to the platform. However, these did offer pretty good levels of grip as well. So I do really enjoy a wide platform, and that was definitely a big benefit with these pedals. I do prefer a slightly wider Q factor, so preferring putting my pedal slightly wider out on the pedal. And if you do prefer a slightly smaller Q factor, there's plenty of real estate to put it inboard. Another big benefit of the extra width is if you slip a pedal, there's plenty of real estate to get back on the pedal in a decent position. And because the platforms are so wide as well, it's always easy to find that comfortable position. And on long rides, because you are standing on a bigger platform, there's definitely less fatigue over that period of time. So now to some limitations of the pedal. So as I've said a few times, I'm not a huge fan of grub screws, and that's definitely evident on these pedals. I did have a few pedal strikes and I've knocked the top off one of the grub screws, so it's going to be a bit of a task to unthread that one. Another issue that I notice is the Loctite that the pins come installed with. It's all the way down to the end of the thread, so it's pretty hard to get that initial thread in when you're tightening up the pins. And I have heard a few people cross-threading these. I didn't have this experience, but I definitely felt like it was a hard bit of a task to get these grub screws in. And the last thing that I noticed with the pins is where they screw in, the pins aren't that long necessarily, so there's a few more threads that you could definitely get into the platform a bit more, which would definitely improve the durability of these pedals, and there's less chances for them to strip out because there's more threads in there holding them on. So yeah, I definitely would like to see the pins a bit thick, a bit longer in that sense. However, you could alleviate this issue completely by just having a platform where the pins screw in from the other side. So I'm not a huge fan of that kind of design, but they could definitely be improved if you were going to use the grub screws. So now for the pedal that's taken the YouTube world by storm, and that's the Pedaling Innovations Catalyst pedals. I'd like to thank Pedaling Innovations for sending these pedals out for review. However, that's not going to change the way they review the pedals or anything like that. I'm still going to provide constructive criticism. So these pedals look a bit different than all the other pedals, and that's because they're really long. So they were designed around 3 different studies, and they're all based around the main idea that the hips are the main drivers of the pedaling force. So it's all about hip recruitment. And the 3 main points from these studies are: 1, that the midfoot position provides better recruitment of the hips for pedaling; 2, the hips are the main muscles involved in the pedaling stroke; and 3, there's no reason to pull up on the backstroke. So to achieve these goals, the pedals had to obviously be flat and they had to be long, so they had to bridge the gap between your heel and the ball of your foot, so really bridging that arch and providing a lot of support there to provide that active recruitment of the hips. So the result of this is, as I said, that really long platform. So it's 128mm long, slightly shorter than advertised because again it's got the chamfered edges at the bottom. So I definitely did notice that midfoot position improved efficiency. I was less fatigued after my rides, and there was definitely a bit more control and I was a bit more stable on the pedals. So the pedals definitely achieved what they set out to do in that regard. However, I did notice 2 things. So by using that midfoot position, you're effectively slackening your seat angles, so you will have to drop your seat a little bit, which definitely isn't a positive a lot of the time. If you're doing steep technical climbs, you really want that steep seat angle. That's why a lot of bikes are coming with these steep seat angles these days. And the other negative that I notice is with that midfoot position, it is really hard to drop your heels, and going through rock gardens and fast sections like that, it is essential to drop your heels going through those sections. Other than changing my foot position descending, the pedals definitely provide a lot more control than other conventional pedals. You can really push into them in corners and you can get a bit of a pump out of it. So yeah, it is definitely a really good design for descending as well. So the pedals come shipped with the small pins installed like the Shimano. They're still decent pins. They're around about 3mm long, which I would have liked nice to see on the Shimanos. However, I removed most of the short pins and I went with an alternating pattern between the short and the long. Main reason for this was the pins are pretty close together, and I found with all the long ones I was definitely hovering a bit more like I was on the Shimanos, and with this pin arrangement, I felt like I was more into the pedal as opposed to levitating on the pedal. When it comes to overall grip, I'd probably say they're a little bit better than the Shimanos, but they probably weren't as good as the Raceface Atlases. It is really reassuring having this big platform under your foot, and I do slip pedals pretty often, as I've been saying, so it is really nice having that big platform. It's plenty of real estate to get your foot back on. However, I did notice, even though they were the longest pedals on test, so it was really nice for my big feet in that sense, they are the narrowest, so they come in at around about 95 millimeters wide, which means because I do slightly prefer a wider Q factor, I did find that my foot was always on the pedal slightly outboard, so that definitely wasn't helping with grip. And then when I put in the normal position, sometimes it got a little bit uncomfortable after a while. So it would be really nice to see the design coming in a little bit wider, and I hear that there might be a wider version coming out in the near future. Other limitations, as I said, grub screws again. You can see I've damaged a few of these ones here as well, and they were also the heaviest pedals on test, so combined they come at around about 530 grams together. So out of the three, which one's the winner? Well, it's definitely a tough decision because they all have benefits in some regards, and a lot of them do have limitations as well. Starting with the Raceface, they have the best pin arrangement, and they also offer the best grip. The XTs, I really enjoyed the wide platform. I definitely like that in a pedal, and it would be nice to see a lot of other pedals coming out with a wide platform. And then the pedaling innovations, they're really good climbing, you get a bit more efficiency, and that extra length is really good too. However, they were slightly on the narrow side. So, tough decision. I'm going to try a few more ones out in the future, but at the moment, I'm probably going to have to put the Catalyst pedals back on the bike, just because I definitely get the most confidence and control while I'm descending on these pedals. If I was to design the perfect pedal, I'd probably have something that's 130 millimeters long, probably 120 millimeters wide. It would use the pins like the Raceface, and you would also be a bit thinner, so similar kind of thickness to the Raceface, because with these bigger platforms, so something like the Catalyst with the longer platforms, you do get a fair bit more pedal strikes, which is something I should have said before. So these are just all my opinions. Everyone's going to have different opinions and personal preferences. Let me know in the comments what's your favorite pedal, and I might be able to try that one out in the future. In the near future, I'm going to be testing out a few different composite pedals. So I've tried the Raceface Chesters out in the past. Going to get some of the 1-ups as well as the Crank Brothers Stamp 1s as well. I'm going to be picking up those this afternoon. So yeah, that should be a good test. A bit more budget friendly. So for those who don't want to spend too much on their bike, definitely going to be a good option. And I feel like those pedals are definitely just as grippy as these ones as well. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to drop us a like and also subscribe to the channel for more reviews in the future. Thanks for watching, guys.